The United States just ran out of bluff. And the country that called it isn't China. It isn't Russia. It's Canada. And before this week is out, you are going to feel it in your bank account. If you've been watching this channel, you already know we track this story every single day. What happened in the last 24 hours just changed the entire equation, and most people have absolutely no idea yet. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you're going to understand exactly why the most powerful trade relationship in human history is fracturing right now, who set it off, who outmaneuvered whom, and what it means for the price of your next car, your next grocery run, and your retirement savings. Here is what almost nobody is talking about. The United States does not run its economy on oil alone. It runs on critical minerals, cobalt, nickel, specialized aluminum, rare earth components that go into every missile, every electric vehicle battery, every defense system. And an overwhelming portion of those materials flow from one place, Canada. Donald Trump apparently forgot that. Or he gambled that Canada wouldn't dare act on it. He was wrong on both counts. Subscribe right now if you want to stay ahead of this story. We update the analysis every single day, not once a week when the damage is already done. For weeks, Trump escalated. He demanded Canada scrap its digital services tax. He demanded Canadian dairy markets open to American producers. He treated the integrated North American supply chain like a leverage chip in a real estate negotiation. He was operating as though Canada had no exit. He was operating as though the rest of the world wasn't watching and waiting. Mark Carney watched. And then he moved. Carney did not fly to Washington. He did not release a softened statement asking for more time. He walked to a podium in Ottawa, and what he announced sent shockwaves through every Bloomberg terminal on Earth. Canada would immediately halt fast-tracked export permits for the critical minerals, specialized aluminum, and electrical components that feed American automotive and defense manufacturing. Simultaneously, Canada unveiled a sweeping multi-billion-dollar supply redirection agreement with the European Union and Japan. He didn't slow the flow to America, he rerouted it entirely. Now here's the part that should genuinely alarm you, because within 60 minutes of that announcement, something happened on live American television that no spin room will ever be able to explain away. Howard Lutnik, the United States Commerce Secretary, sat down at the CNBC anchor desk. And what the world watched over the next several minutes was not a composed cabinet official delivering a measured response. It was a senior American official visibly losing control. He was perspiring under the studio lights. He was raising his voice. He called Canada a national security threat. He threatened asset seizures. He said things that no prepared official says on camera, because prepared officials do not accidentally confirm their own vulnerabilities. He confirmed them, loudly, on record. Lutnick yelled that American defense contractors cannot build missiles without Canadian metals. He yelled that Michigan auto plants would halt operations within days. He appeared on television to project strength, and instead he projected something far more dangerous. He projected that the White House had no contingency. He projected panic. And the markets heard every word. This is where you need to understand the mechanics of what Carney actually did, because it was not a tariff. It was not a threat. It was a surgical removal of the assumption that America's supply chain was unconditional. One steering column in a Michigan-assembled vehicle might cross the U.S.-Canada border 6 times during the manufacturing process. When the export permits were halted, the robotic assembly arms didn't slow down. They stopped. Workers at Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis plants stood on factory floors watching conveyor belts go silent, waiting for components legally held in Canadian impound facilities. Tens of billions in market capitalization evaporated in the first 2 hours of trading. The Dow moved in fear. Institutional money began rotating away from American manufacturing because institutional money does not care about political bravado. It cares about supply chain reliability. And American supply chains just became unreliable. Drop what you think you know about this trade war for a moment and consider what Carney brought to this fight. This is not a politician making noise. This is the former governor of the Bank of Canada, the man who kept Canadian banks solvent while American banks collapsed in 2008. This is the former governor of the Bank of England, the man who navigated an entire nation through the financial chaos of Brexit. He has spent a career converting pressure into strategic position. He warned the World Economic Forum in Davos that Canada was building strategic independence. He was not making a speech. He was issuing a timetable. While Washington was running its tariff playbook, threaten, escalate, dominate the news cycle, wait for submission. Carney was running a different playbook entirely. He was quietly locking in long-term procurement agreements. He was eliminating internal trade barriers inside Canada to reduce domestic dependence on American commerce. He was building the diplomatic architecture that would allow Canada to redirect its most critical exports the moment Washington overplayed its hand. 20 new economic and security partnerships with Europe now finalized. The era of Canada sending 75% of its exports to a single buyer is over. Trump tried to build a wall. Carney built a bridge to every country watching. And now you need to understand what this actually costs you personally. Because this is not a story that stays in the headlines. This comes home. When the parts stop flowing into Michigan, the inventory on dealership lots dries up. When inventory dries up, the markups surge. When the diesel supply chains running your food across interstate highways face disruption, the price of groceries climbs. When American manufacturers can no longer guarantee the reliability of their own supply lines, your retirement account absorbs the volatility. You are not watching a diplomatic dispute. You are watching the beginning of an inflation event that is entirely self-inflicted. You are paying what amounts to an ego tax, the financial cost of a trade war launched without accounting for the possibility that the other side would not simply comply. Now here's the question that nobody in the White House has a clean answer to. And this is where the story gets genuinely dangerous. 3 scenarios are now on the table. In the first, the corporate pressure becomes unbearable. The CEOs of the automotive manufacturers, the logistics firms, the defense contractors walk into the Oval Office and force a reversal before the industrial damage becomes permanent. Trump is compelled into a retreat that will be publicly humiliating but economically necessary. In the second scenario, Trump escalates rather than retreats. He declares a national emergency. He attempts to use executive and wartime authority to militarize the response. He turns a trade confrontation into a constitutional crisis, while allied nations begin formally aligning with Canada and the global recession accelerates. In the third scenario, Congress moves faster than the White House expects. Legislators facing furious constituents who just lost factory jobs push through veto-proof legislation, stripping the president's ability to invoke national security exceptions against allied trading partners. The Republican Party fractures. Washington turns inward at exactly the moment it can least afford to. Any of those 3 paths ends the same way, with the United States having permanently demonstrated that it is willing to destroy its own supply chain for political leverage. And once that trust is gone, it does not come back quickly. Consider what the world actually saw today. The Commerce Secretary of the United States flushed and shouting on cable television, confirming every vulnerability his own president created. And thousands of miles north, cargo vessels loaded with Canadian steel and critical minerals adjusting their course, not toward American ports, but toward Europe and Asia. That is the precise moment that the assumption of American indispensability began to crack. This story is not slowing down. The factories are depleting their parts inventory. The diplomatic machinery is moving, and every major capital in the world is watching to see whether Washington has any answer left that doesn't involve a humiliating reversal or a catastrophic escalation. The question I want to leave you with is this. When a G7 nation responds to a superpower's ultimatum, not with anger, not with pleading, but with a spreadsheet and 20 new trade partners, what does that tell you about where real power is shifting in the 21st century? If you think Carney just protected Canada, or if you think he handed Trump the excuse to escalate into something far worse, tell me below. The comments on this story have been extraordinary, and I read every one. We are tracking every development on this every single day. The moment something breaks, you will know before the headlines catch up. If this breakdown gave you something the news didn't, subscribe. No noise, just the analysis that actually matters, every day.